All right. Well, thank you so much, Elke. Appreciate everybody hopping on today. As Elke mentioned, my name is Dana Tracy. I am the Regional Sales Director for the Southeast and for Definity. And joining me is Melanie Williamson, who is the Director of our 316 service team. Today, we're going to be talking about 316 Fiduciary Services, what they are, and why you may want to consider them for your company. I'm going to start off with an interesting statistic here for you. 82% of plan sponsors say that fiduciary matters are important to them, yet over a third of plan sponsors don't even know that they are considered a fiduciary. This is critical because something can be important to you, but you don't even know that it's an issue or need to worry about it because you don't even know it exists. So what exactly is a fiduciary? An ERISA fiduciary is anyone who exercises discretionary authority or control over a plan or its assets, or who gives an investment advice to the plan or its participants. And most of the time, if you sponsor a 401k plan, you'll most likely have discretion over the plan in some capacity. And so this makes you a fiduciary. ERISA outlines several duties that a fiduciary of a 401k performs. However, these are not all encompassing. These include determining that fees are reasonable for the plan and its participants, that the investments offered are diversified, that the terms of the plan document are being followed, and the decisions about the plan and its investments are made in the best interest of the plan participants and their beneficiaries. There are two main types of fiduciaries. The first subset are investment fiduciaries. And as Elke mentioned, Renee is going to get into more about what the investment fiduciaries are today. So I'm going to hold off on that. But 321 and 338 fiduciaries, in a nutshell, play a role in overseeing the plan assets or investments and are required, like all fiduciaries, to act under the ERISA guidelines. What we're going to focus on more today is what is called a 316 fiduciary. A 316 fiduciary is a service provider hired by an employer to manage the day-to-day administrative work for a 401k or qualified plan. A 316 fiduciary works with the plan sponsor to ensure that the plan is created and managed according to the criteria set forth by ERISA. So in the world of fiduciary liability, clearly less is more. This may seem counterintuitive, but most of the fines assessed by the Department of Labor and the IRS are not related to the improper investments, but actually to how the plan is administered, which is related to the 316 code. This, of course, is usually done by an in-house employee or even the plan sponsor or owner of the company. Errors caused by these employees or individuals tend to be very costly. So for example, failing to remit the Form 5500 has a Department of Labor fine of over $2,200 per day. So why consider adding a 316 fiduciary or 316 services to your plan? Well, it helps meet the duty of prudence by providing expert retirement plan and management services. It helps to reduce the day-to-day workload of a plan sponsor, and it helps reduce the risk of violating complicated ERISA regulations. There are a wide variety of clients that can benefit from 316 fiduciary services, but most tend to fall into one of three categories. Clients who are busy running their company with little or no time to focus on their retirement plan, clients that are concerned with compliance and fiduciary risk, or clients that have limited staff and need assistance with monitoring plan activities such as payroll or distribution of notices. Here I have listed the top 12 most common plan mistakes. They include not updating the plan document, not following the terms of the plan document, not using the plan's definition of compensation properly, employer matching errors, not satisfying non-discrimination testing, not notifying eligible employees about the plan or allowing them to make contributions, exceeding the IRS limits on deferrals, not participating deferrals timely, participant loan issues, participant hardship issues, top-heavy plan issues, and not filing a Form 5500 or distributing the summary annual report to participants. All of these can have pretty hefty penalties associated by the Department of Labor, IRS, or both. So now that I've got you pretty significantly panicked, here's where I tell you not to worry, because this is where we can help. So I'm going to hand it over to Melanie, who's going to tell you a little bit about how the Fiduciary Studio can integrate with your plan to help alleviate a lot of these issues.
Thanks, Dana. That was great. You're right, don't panic. We're here to help. The Fiduciary Studio works with Definity as the TPA to help you with some of the responsibilities as fiduciary on your plan. Some of the items are, we operate as the name 316 administrator in the plan document, so co-fiduciary with you as a plan sponsor. We confirm and ensure that revisions to your summary plan description and participant disclosures are correct. If any amendments happen to your plan document, these documents need to be updated, so we make sure that they're included in those notices that you give out to your participants. We monitor the timeliness of plan amendments and restatements. Plan amendments are those changes to your plan document that you elect, and restatements are required every 6 years by the IRS. And if you're familiar with your plan document, you're probably in the middle of those restatements right now. It's a rolling 6-year cycle based on the IRS, not based on when you had your plan. So we just make sure that you meet those requirements by the deadlines. We will determine eligible employees for you and notify you and or your participants of their eligibility in the plan. This would include enrollment kits, the initial notices to these participants so they know the plan exists, and kind of help you get that information out to your participants so they know that they can participate in your plan. We will work with your record keeper to manage automatic enrollments programs if you have that in your plan, which includes automatic increases and opt-outs. We will work with your TPA or Definity, who is the TPA, to monitor forfeitures annually and review vesting. So we'll make sure that you're aware that you have forfeitures pending, and we'll make sure that the record keepers get updated with their vesting for the current year. Well, this one's a duplicate, sorry about that. Monitor timeliness of payroll submissions and employer contribution funding. We will not submit the payrolls under the 316 service, but we will quarterly go out and review to make sure those payrolls, whoever's submitting them, is doing them timely and within the required time frame. If we find an issue with it, we will reach out to you as plan sponsor, and we'll work with that provider to make sure that they correct their processes so that it doesn't happen again. We will review and sign participant distributions and loans. This includes looking at hardship provisions and making sure that your participants meet the hardship qualifications to be able to take their money. So we'll look at that documentation for you and not have you have to determine whether or not it meets the hardship requirements. We will review and sign your 5500 and the 8955. We will review qualified domestic relations orders. We'll ensure that they meet the compliance of the plan document, and we'll also make sure the participants, both the alternate beneficiary and the participant, is aware of what we read the quadro to be as, and make sure that it's processed accordingly to the quadro document. We will review what the TPA provides to you in their annual valuation package, just to make sure that every non-discrimination testing that applies to your plan is completed and documented. We will deliver your notices electronically to participants for you. This is kind of a big thing. We also work with a provider if we have to mail them because they don't have access to email readily. We will also help you get those sent out via mail timely and within the time frame that's required. Additionally, we'll work with you if you have other things that come up. You know, we can discuss your plan with you. We can go through any provisions you're looking at and help with anything else you need from a plan sponsor perspective. One of the key things that I like to think of is, you know, this is our expertise. A plan sponsor brings a plan in, but they're not an expert on everything that's required to be done for the plan. We're there to be that expert for you so that we and you get everything done that you need to. That doesn't mean that you're completely off the hook with being involved with us, but we'll monitor it for you and make sure you're on top of things. So who are the basic parties involved when you have a plan? So it's all centers around you as plan sponsor. You're the one that elected to bring this plan in for your employees, and you've got the plan document and you set up all the investments and you get everything ready to go. You'll then hire a TPA. The TPA will make sure your compliance testing is completed, will help process loans and distributions, will answer questions for you. You have a financial advisor involved. They help you pick out the right funds, they monitor those funds and make sure they're prudent, and they work with your participants if they need any investment advice. You also have your record keeper. Your record keeper is the person that holds the assets. So they're the ones that are going to keep the participant balances, they're going to hold the money, and they're going to invest per the instructions. And then you have the Fiduciary Studio or your 316 administrator. We work side by side with you as a plan sponsor to make sure that you're meeting all the requirements that you're required to have for sponsoring a plan. So who does what? So the four main parts of the plan sponsor: your TPA, your 316 administrator, and your record keeper. So as a plan sponsor, you're the main contact for your service providers as well as your participants. As the plan sponsor, you're required to provide to the TPA and the record keeper information timely so that we can meet the IRS deadlines for non-discrimination testing and 5500 filings. You're responsible for working with your financial advisor to provide the investments and related requirements to have investments in your plan. And you're required to make timely contributions. What your TPA does for you is they help you design your plan. They maintain the plan document. They do your annual administration. They'll perform any required non-discrimination testing. They'll create your Form 5500 and submit it to you for signature. And if you elect, TPAs can also submit payroll files for you. And then they work with your participants to do withdrawals from the plan, whether it be in service or as a terminated participant. The 316 fiduciary is co-fiduciary on your plan with you as plan sponsor. We ensure that the plan documents are kept up to date. We distribute notices to your participants. We review annual administration for completeness. We'll sign your 5500. We'll monitor your payroll processing and make sure that there's procedures in place with all your providers to do this timely. And we'll review participant withdrawals. And then your record keeper's main function is education for your participants. Typically they have a website, and so support with that website. They'll provide your investment fund notices, and they usually have their own administrative forms that they would like you to complete to do any activity within the plan. All right, so we've made it to the end of the presentation itself. Dana and I have put together a few common questions that we've had, and we're going to kind of do a Q&A with each other, and then we can open it up to any questions that you guys might have.
Yeah, so these are questions that as sales director and as Melanie, as the head of the 316 team, we have heard more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. So we figured these would be good questions to ask and answer, so that since they seem to be, frequently asked. So Mel, does the Fiduciary Studio clearly state the responsibilities of each party?
Yes, we do. We have a very detailed service agreement that outlines what we will do as 316. We also put together a detailed memo on a per client basis. It's very individualized based on who your record keeper is, who your TPA is, what they can and cannot do, and we provide exactly who's going to be responsible for what and when.
What aspects of eligibility does the Fiduciary Studio handle?
So we will partner with your payroll company and your record keeper to have online access to your accounts, so that we can go out there on a periodic basis and make sure that payroll is being submitted timely through the right channels. We download census from there directly for you. So at the end of the year, if you're familiar, you normally have to give us a full census. We're able to go out to your payroll company and download that ourselves. This census includes stuff like your social security numbers, your name, compensation, year-to-date hours, stuff like that. That allows us to do eligibility counts for you, as well as provide your TPA with an annual census timely.
Okay, so that thing at the end of the year that you always ask us to send, you can do that, right?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Does the Fiduciary Studio provide custom options for 316, or is it a set it and this is what you get?
So the 316, it's one option and it's all inclusive. We do allow you to pick and choose, but there isn't any, it's not an a la carte menu. It's 316, here's what it is. But say you really want to sign your distribution forms, we're going to let you. There is an add-on service for governance. It is one of our only add-on services, and it basically provides, I think the best selling point for governance is for that annual fee. If you're ever audited, we will provide a no-cost service to support you in that audit. And there's a quarterly memo that we'll send out, kind of looking at your plan on a quarterly basis, what's going on, what's happening with your specifically compared to markets and stuff like that. But for the most part, 316 is just one service, and then we'll go through and pick the things we can or cannot do. For example, like if you have an in-house payroll and you don't have online access, it's going to be hard for us to do some of our services if we can't have access to your in-house payroll that might be on a local desktop in your building.
Got it. So what happens if the data submitted to the Fiduciary Studio has an error?
So first, from the 316 perspective, we're going to look at that data and determine where that came from. If it came from your TPA, we're going to work with the TPA to get that fixed. If it came from the payroll provider, we're going to work with them to get it fixed. So we're kind of a monitoring agent. We're not necessarily doing a lot of the work, but we will work with them to make sure they get better processes in place to not have that error happen again.
Okay. So if something is screwed up, who fixes it?
Depends on where it came from.
Okay.
If it's the TPA, we'll obviously work with that TPA to do the right tax forms, do the right corrections, get it all settled. It's their response. If it's their mistake, then they're obviously liable for any penalties that come up. If it's, payroll and done internally, we just need to work and figure out where it came from and who's responsible for it. Again, we monitor to make sure we monitor the things that you should be monitoring that you just don't have time to monitor. And we make sure that going forward, we cover them and make sure they're fixed and we have processes in place so that it doesn't happen again.
Okay. How do you document the annual actions that you do?
So we'll provide a kind of a roll-up year-end summary of what happened. You'll get your valuation package like you normally do from your TPA. We'll take that information and we'll put it in a big summary for you so that you'll see that you've addressed all your discrimination testing. We've looked at all your payrolls, they were all timely, and kind of address every topic that we review for you. So you have something in your files to say that we were prudent and you did what you're supposed to do as a plan sponsor.
Okay. You mentioned something about audit support. What will the Fiduciary Studio, how will the Fiduciary Studio support you in the event of an audit?
So we work with your TPA. If you have the governance piece add-on, obviously that it's no cost to you, and we will work with the TPA and the agent to do anything that the audit requires. If you don't have the add-on from 316, we can still help out, but there's an hourly rate for that. But we are there to support you as with plan sponsor as far as an audit is concerned, either with the TPA or directly.
Okay. I'm way too busy running my company and I really don't want to have anything to do with the 401k plan. Will 316 help and fix this for me?
Yes and no. We definitely will help, but we cannot 100% take it away from you as plan sponsor. There's just some things that the plan sponsor is going to have to deal with. But we are there to make sure the plan sponsor does everything they're required to do. And we will reach out to say if we run into any kind of issues. But there's not always things that we have the power to fix. But with us together, we definitely can get things done.
Okay. And hopefully a lot easier.
Yeah.
I'm already paying for a 321 fiduciary on my plan as part of the record keeper and investment lineup. Do I need to pay more for a 316?
It's two different things. I think as Dana mentioned, and I'm sure Renee is going to go into more detail, the 316 is on the administration side. So it's on the compliance and legal end. It has nothing to do with your investments and investment policies. So it is something that all of it together works really well together to meet all the needs that you have as a fiduciary. but they are completely different actions.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mel. Now we wanted to open it up to some of the questions that have been asked in the Q&A. Someone says, Definity is already doing many of the 316 activities. Is this changing?
I guess I'm not sure which activity you're speaking to, because obviously if we're not named 316, we can't be doing the 316 activities. I'll use hardships for an example. If Definity is processing your hardship for you, they're going to take instruction from you whether it meets the hardship criteria or not. What you have as an added benefit from 316 is that we'll actually require that we get the backup and make sure it meets the hardship guidelines. So it doesn't put the onus on you to approve that hardship. We make sure it meets all the legal requirements.
Okay. Is there a recommendation for fiduciaries to carry a separate liability insurance policy, or is this oftentimes covered under other types of business insurances?
I'd have to check for sure, but I think it's covered. Usually you get an add-on, a ERISA bond added on to your corporate policy that covers the plan itself. I don't know of any other fiduciary insurance, but I can definitely look into that. Dana, do you know?
Yeah, I have heard of some marketing companies suggesting fiduciary liability coverage. I don't know that it provides any additional coverage than an ERISA bond, or any further coverage than you would get by doing these services that you would normally do. So frankly, I think it's a marketing item versus something that has been, legally challenged.
Right. Okay.
There's no requirement, I should say.